Before we get into this episode, make sure you're subscribed to our channel. You can hit the notification button so you can get updated weekly on all of our latest content. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, tell us what you want to see next below.
So I've been telling her for like 2 days. I'm like, I've been on Skinny Confidential before. You see how like delusional
She
I
doesn't
am?
remember. She doesn't, it doesn't
Forget it.
Well, now you're here.
Yeah,
I
we're
know.
here now. We're so
I
excited.
finally I manifested it maybe.
But you might have manifested it. And we manifested having you guys on. We're so excited to have you both here. Can you give our audience a little background, each of you?
I'll start because I'm closer to y'all, and then we'll move to the left.
Love it.
I started out in the editorial world. I was a West Coast editor of GQ, Allure, Marie Claire, kind of you name it. I was the Hollywood person. So I would help decide who was on the cover, and then I would style them. Then I did television. I did a show called Ambush Makeover where I'd grab you off the street and give you makeovers. And then I created different TV shows. Then I became a celebrity stylist, and then I became a fashion designer. And I, for 10 years, had Net-a-Porter launched us. I was at Saks. So COVID hit, and I was making red carpet cocktail dresses. And so that was it for my fashion line, which was really sad. And at the same time, my parents got sick with brain disease. And so I just sort of didn't know what I was going to do. So my friend Molly Sims was like, come on my podcast, and I said, okay, let me bring doctors on that I really care about, whether it's brain or premenopause or whatever that is. And that's where I met her. She came on and I said, oh my God, this is my next mountain. If I can get your information into the lives and ears of every woman in the world, will change the world for healthcare for women because it's so broken. So
I'm Dr. Thaïs Aliabadi. I'm a gynecologist. I've been in private practice for 24 years, around women for 30 years. And my biggest passion in life is to change women's health. And I've tried to advocate for it, but now with the platforms, with the podcast, the reach is bigger. So I feel like I can reach more women and hopefully help them become their own health advocate and teach them how to navigate our current healthcare system.
Out of everything that you've seen, what do you think is the biggest bullshit? If you had to call something out, with all the healthcare going on, you see it behind the scenes, especially with women. What have you seen that you just can't stand?
Dismissal. 50% of women, when they go to their OBGYN, they leave thinking that their complaint was not addressed and they were dismissed. And I think that number is a lot higher than that. And that really upsets me. If you spend a day with me in my office, by the end of the day, you'll go home with a broken heart.
What do you mean? Why?
Because, I see a lot of women who have been dismissed just because that's my practice. And I see a lot of endometriosis. I see a lot of PCOS patients. And PCOS and endometriosis are the top 2 causes of infertility in women. Top 2. Majority of doctors and almost all women, men, they've never heard of these 2 conditions, which is heartbreaking. And by the time 75% of PCOS patients are never diagnosed. Majority of endometriosis patients are never diagnosed. In this country, it takes 9 to 11 years to diagnose endometriosis. And by the time you diagnose it, these women have no eggs left. I mean, in your waiting area, someone pulled me aside and said, can you help me? Because no one's helping me. I'm getting dismissed. And she
had endometriosis.
And it is absolutely heartbreaking. And this is the story of my life. And that's all I see. So one message I have for women is that don't think whatever your doctor says is the truth. As much as I love doctors, they don't have time. And a lot of them are not educated on women's health. When you go through an OBGYN residency, they talk about you learn how to deliver a baby, how to care for the mom during pregnancy. But we spent a very short amount of time on women's health, on the GYN aspect of it, which is from fertility to painful periods to fibroids, polyps, menopause. I mean, look how little people knew about menopause 10 years ago. And my mission, to full circle back, my mission in life is to change women's health and to basically help women to be their own health advocate. And the only way to do that is by educating them. And that's why we started our podcast, because it was a place for me to go and really teach them. It's not a generalized podcast. We literally take topic by topic. And sometimes I go as detailed as the dosage of the medication that I prescribe. Obviously, I can't treat people over a podcast, but at least I give them a checklist that they can take with them to their appointment. And that's the first start.
Why is endometriosis happening more and more and more? Why are we seeing so much of this?
I don't think it is. I think it's because nobody's diagnosed.
Right.
So you're saying the issue's been there, but nobody diagnosed it.
Yeah.
So it's just as prevalent as it's been, but nobody's known they had it.
I was in south of France, and my husband's, one of my husband's relatives lived there, and he's an OBGYN, and they could never have a child. And out of curiosity, I'm like, why did you guys didn't have a child? They're like, well, it didn't work out. And the first thing I asked the wife, I'm like, did you have painful periods? She's like, oh my God, it was so painful. But I was sitting, I looked at my husband. Obviously I didn't say anything, but a wife of an OBGYN this is many years ago, didn't know to this day why she didn't get pregnant, and I could solve it for her in 2 seconds. So, but I just want you to know that we talked today at, this weekend we've been talking about PCOS, endometriosis, and
fertility, menopause.
fertility, and so many women came up to me. One of them just now came up to me and said, for the past few years, I've seen at least 100 doctors. I know I have endometriosis. I go in and they tell me, no, you don't.
So I am willing to look uneducated as a man on this show. What exactly is endometriosis for the uneducated?
And PCOS, because those are the two causes of
that
infertility.
one we have talked about PCOS, so I'm
What's
up to date.
PCOS?
No, I want to hear about.
You explain us PCOS.
I'm not going to explain it. We're staying.
He doesn't fucking know.
No, I know what it is. We're staying on endometriosis.
He's like PG-13. You have no idea.
I just said I'm willing.
Okay.
We're going to talk about both of them, because
let's stay on endometriosis right now.
Let's start with endometriosis. Okay. So endometriosis affects 10% of women on the planet.
Okay.
Close your eyes and think of 10%, right? Yet many doctors don't know about it, don't diagnose it. Patients have never heard of it. Forget about men. They've really never heard of it. Endometriosis is when cells so from the day we get our period to the day we're menopausal, our ovaries are helping us get pregnant. They secrete a hormone, estrogen and progesterone. They get the lining of the uterus ready for pregnancy. When we don't get pregnant, the lining sheds as a form of period once a month. 10% of women on the planet have cells similar to the lining of the uterus outside of the uterus, around the tubes and ovaries, in the wall of the uterus, or inside the ovaries. If it's inside the ovary, it's called endometrioma. If it's in the wall of the uterus, we call it adenomyosis, but the condition is endometriosis. Now, once a month, when the ovaries are secreting hormones to get the lining of the uterus ready, these implants outside of the uterus get stimulated. And I'm simplifying it. And when we don't get pregnant and the lining breaks down, these cells on the outside break down and bleed.
Okay.
You're not supposed to have blood outside of the uterus. So it gives a lot of pain, painful period, painful sex. If these implants are on the bladder, these patients get recurrent bladder infections. They keep bouncing into the doctor's office with a prescription for a bladder, antibiotic, but they don't get better. They have pain with deep penetration during sex. They get bloated. They get back pain. And eventually, because they get dismissed, because they go to the doctor and someone says, take Motrin, take Advil, here's the heating pad, here's a note from school, or you're, being dramatic, painful periods are normal, dismissal after dismissal after dismissal, until eventually their egg count and quality shoots down and their pelvis scars, right? Their tubes get blocked. They're at risk for ectopic pregnancy outside of the uterus. They can't get pregnant because of that inflammation, that inflammatory response in the pelvis that causes scarring and adhesions and blocks the egg from getting into the fallopian tube.
So the ectopic pregnancy is when it gets stuck and doesn't come into the tube.
It gets stuck in the tube or somewhere, It could be in the ovary, but outside of the uterus.
Okay, and then they wait to get this information so long to the point where they're past the age of fertility, or they're past. They
basically.
So I'm just trying to keep up.
Yes, absolutely. And these patients usually, let's say, show up at 34. I had a patient, 34-year-old. Her egg count was 0. This woman had gone to doctors for 9 years. Do you understand? We did a podcast. I did a bowel resection because of the adhesion. Sometimes they get adhesions in the bowel and almost like a bowel obstruction. We had to cut someone's bowel out. She came on our podcast just because she got dismissed. This is so common, you guys. But
Olivia Culpa episode, she goes deeply into her endometriosis episode, and if you listen to that, you're just, and this is happening to women all over the place. If a woman like Olivia Culpa, who has access to everything, can't get the right medical care until she found Dr. A, imagine what a woman in Alabama who doesn't have.
Can I say something though? I think that where this starts, this is going to be weird. Where this starts is when you're a little tiny girl. And what I mean by this is there's a shame around asking questions about your vagina when you're really, really little. I had someone tell me, from the second your daughter's born, use the word vagina, talk to her about her vagina, make an open dialogue. So when she comes to me when she's 6 or she's 10 or she's 13, she can have open conversation. What happens is that there's a shame around it. And so women don't want to ask questions, and then they go to a male gynecologist, and to be honest, like that's maybe another layer of shame if they're not used to talking about it when they're little. So it seems to me it starts very young.
It starts very young, and even when you talk about it at home, and you can still take him to female gynecologists too. It's not just male gynecologists. At that age, they usually end up in the pediatrician's office, right? Not in a GYN office. And pediatricians don't know how to handle these patients because they don't know, they haven't been trained about it. Now, with so many podcasts, and I've done my little share of bringing awareness to this condition now for many years. But luckily, that's why, when you invite me to come here, I run, because I feel like if I have this mic and your audience can listen to me, I can save a little girl from becoming infertile later in life and suffering from chronic pelvic pain. And these patients, let me tell you, the saddest part is any human on this planet Earth with chronic pain becomes depressed. There's no one that can wake up every morning in pain and be okay, especially when you keep going to doctors and they dismiss you and you start thinking you're crazy. Well, let me tell you, women are not crazy. We have superpowers. We are so in tune with our body. And when we think something's wrong, 99% of the time, and I'm not exaggerating, 99% of the time, the patient's right. Something is wrong.
So if you were to spread the word to women everywhere, what would you have them do to prevent this from happening and to prevent infertility from happening in the future?
I would say be your own health advocate. There's no other way around it. Yeah. And in order to be your own health advocate, you need to be educated on that topic. I get very irritated when women say, I'm going for my pap smear. Please don't switch your well-woman exam or GYN exam that needs to be done annually. Just, don't simplify it to a pap smear. Pap smear is one part of that. If you have painful period, it needs to address. If you have heavy period, if you're spotting, if your periods are irregular, if you have acne, if you have hair loss, if you have facial hair, if you have family history of cancer, if all of it, your egg count needs to be tested. So all of it should be part of a well-woman exam. So it's not just a pap smear. But in order to advocate for yourself, you need to educate yourself. Luckily, now we have artificial intelligence. We have ChatGPT. We started this podcast not because I wanted to have a podcast, because I work 100-hour weeks. But
don't stop the podcast. I need you to keep doing the podcast. It's doing well.
Poor thing. I'm like, okay, after your 5 surgeries, you have to come over here and we have to shoot the podcast about PCOS endometriosis.
And I do that because I see the pain, and I always tell her, my patients with PCOS and endometriosis are so traumatized that over the years of practicing medicine, that trauma has transferred to me. I'm traumatized. And by coming on these podcasts and speaking about it, I'm healing their trauma or my trauma that I inherited from them. It is really painful to spend, and that's all I see. My practice is endo and PCOS. I had a patient last week. She came from Chicago. When I went in, she had her luggage, and I'm like, the first thing I told her, I said, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you have to come from Chicago for me to treat the top cause of infertility in you. You know what the diagnosis is, but you've been so dismissed that you have to get on a flight and come to see me. I'm embarrassed for me and for this healthcare system that has failed you.
Well, and we always say about the podcast, very few people can fly to LA and go see Dr. A. That's a very small percentage. She says, I don't want you to come see me.
Yeah.
I want to educate you enough so that you can go to any doctor and walk in with a roadmap of what needs to happen. And I don't think you could talk about endo without PCOS because they're sisters and both of them together are the top cause of infertility.
What is PCOS?
So polycystic ovarian syndrome affects 15% of women in this country. Close your eyes and think of 15%. It's one of the top causes of infertility. With endometriosis, the two are the top causes, right?
Could you have both?
So
at the
we'll
same
get
time?
absolutely.
This is what's important about it.
Keep up, Michael.
I'm keeping up.
I'm so proud of you for asking these
I'm
questions.
keeping up.
No,
Boys have to
he
be
has no
educated
idea
too.
about
I have
it.
sisters and
Okay.
a daughter.
Yeah.
You know,
I
love
love
this.
this.
and a wife.
So 40% of PCOS patients have endometriosis, yes. So when you diagnose endo, you better not miss PCOS. And when you diagnose PCOS, you better not miss endometriosis. PCOS is a hormonal condition that affects 15% of women in this country. If you go to Middle East, that number could go as high as 23%.
Why?
Because at the core of it is insulin resistance. And so the countries where there's diabetes and insulin resistance are more prevalent, you see it more. It has a genetic factor to it. The problem is we don't know why. That's the big problem with PCOS. We don't know what the cause is, why some people have it. It could be inflammatory. It could be insulin resistant. It could be post birth control pill PCOS. There are different forms of it. But at its core, it's a hormonal imbalance. And these women, generally speaking, have irregular periods and they have elevated testosterone symptoms. What are those symptoms? Facial hair, body hair, acne, hair thinning. Majority of these patients have a mood disorder. They suffer from anxiety and depression. They gain weight, even though they're doing what a skinny person is doing next to them.
Gracie Norton came on our podcast and talked about
Yeah,
this, remember?
Gracie is amazing. She's an amazing advocate for that.
So
she was on our podcast.
Is it largely led by insulin resistance, or that's just a symptom of?
Yes,
Okay.
no, it's largely led by
Okay.
insulin resistance. And I was getting, so a lot of these patients have family history of diabetes, insulin resistance, PCOS, or gestational diabetes, or overweight family members. And believe it or not, anytime you combine easy weight gain with anxiety and depression, the sum of those two equal an eating disorder. So I always say, instead of whenever you see a teenage girl with an eating disorder, before you put them through a psychiatrist, a therapist, and diagnose them with a mental health disorder, you better make sure you're not missing PCOS. If you want to find PCOS patients, go knock on these eating disorder centers. Their stories are devastating. These are young girls that are eating exactly what that skinny friend is eating at school. They're exercising probably more, and they cannot lose 1 pound. So eating disorder, very prevalent in PCOS patients. And PCOS as one of the top causes of infertility. Polycystic ovarian syndrome does not mean cysts. These people have a lot of follicles in their ovaries. Their ovulation is suboptimal. And there are two reasons why they can't get pregnant and they end up in a fertility clinic at an older age. One is because they're not ovulating regularly. So even if they have regular periods, their ovulation is suboptimal. So they can't get pregnant. And the second thing is PCOS patients have a lot of eggs. So they go to the doctor and the doctor does an ultrasound and says, oh my God, you have so many eggs in your follicles. Well, it's a double-edged sword because they do have a lot of follicles, but the quality goes down really fast after 30. So if you have a PCOS patient, you better diagnose them early. And if they don't have a partner In my office, if you can't afford it, the problem is paying for egg freezing. But I literally force my patients to freeze between 28 to 30. So if I have a 22-year-old PCOS patient and I've checked their egg count and their egg count is high, I always tell them at 22, I'm like, just be ready. Start saving, because between 28 and 30, unless you're ready to have a baby, I will ask you to freeze eggs.
I would have loved for you to explain that to us, since you knew what PCOS is, Michael.
No, I was figuring let the doctor take that one.
Let me ask a question. You kind of mentioned this a little bit. Say there's a 21-year-old or an 18-year-old, and she finds out she has endometriosis and PCOS. What is the roadmap of you telling her to do between 18 and 40?
I love that question.
It's such a good question.
So first of all, let's start with PCOS, right? Because so majority of PCOS patients go through life, never get diagnosed.
75%.
And I think that number is probably around 90%. So, but the studies show 75%.
Means it's 90 for sure.
It's for sure 90.
For sure.
So because these patients don't get diagnosed, one of the things I did once we started having this reach, and I've been the biggest PCOS advocate all my life. I've dedicated my practice to PCOS and endo. I started a platform called OVII. There's an assessment test. It's free. Anyone can go. Obviously, I can't diagnose you online because you're not my patient. But if you take this assessment, I can tell you whether or not you have the likelihood of having PCOS, which is the biggest step in the right direction. Because once you know that you might have PCOS, you become your own health advocate, right? So you start Googling a PCOS doctor near me. And in addition to that, over the years, I used to treat a lot of patients want, A, they don't have access to a doctor. And B, when they have access, they get dismissed. So over the years, I used to give multiple supplements to these patients to treat them. So with the help of some of the smartest scientists on the planet, after many years, I created one supplement that they take once a day that will address almost all their symptoms of PCOS. So that's one thing I've done for PCOS, but my dream is for everyone who thinks has a PCOS diagnosis or has irregular period, is overweight, has acne, hair loss, facial hair, body hair, infertile, go take the assessment. It's free. Just take it. And if you have it, become your own health advocate. Go to your doctor, go to a PCOS specialist. So that's one. Let's go back. What was the question again?
Meaning like what should a 21-year-old do until they're 40?
Bravo. So on the second hand, painful periods, which we talked about. So here's what I do in my office. If you're 16 years old and you come to my office with your mom and your or the patient says, I skip school when I have my period, I stay in bed, I can't go to the gym, I can't do sports, that's endometriosis until proven otherwise. Treat those patients. Suppress their endometriosis. Don't dismiss them, number one. Number two is check their egg count. I have 16-year-olds who have an egg count of a 40-year-old because of endometriosis.
Wow.
So it's never too early to check an egg count. By 18, I want every single girl on this planet to know her egg count. Genetics play a factor, endometriosis plays a factor, PCOS plays a factor, and then you follow that egg count. The test is AMH, anti-Mullerian hormone, is covered by insurance. We had a little assistant beautiful young girl who used to work for us. One day she came to me, she's like, listen, I've been listening to your podcast. I think I have endometriosis. I'm 24. I went to my doctor, my gynecologist last week, and I said, can you check my AMH? I want to know what my egg count is because I have really bad periods. And the gynecologist told her in Los Angeles that it would be malpractice for her to order an AMH because 24 was too young.
No one has ever told me that in my entire life to check my egg count, ever. I've never heard that. We've had a lot of people on this podcast. I've never heard to get my egg count checked, ever.
I mean,
well, do you know your lifetime was the breast cancer?
No.
Okay, so when she saved Olivia Munn's life, Thaïs had breast cancer. And then very famously, Olivia's now really come out and changed the world for breast cancer. She saved her life by doing this genetic test, which I'm going to let her again talk about. But these are basic things that every woman should know. Their lifetime risk of breast cancer, and I'm going to have her explain that, and their egg count. I mean, that's what we talk about. It's just being educated. Women that are educated are fearless and so powerful. We're powerless when we don't know what to do. When we met, I had never heard of PCOS, and she started talking to me, and she's 15% of all women have it. 75% don't know that they have it. It blew my mind. She told me her breast cancer journey, where as a doctor, she had to fight to get a mastectomy and then was told she had breast cancer. Olivia would be in a very different situation if Dr. A wasn't her patient. So what you want to talk about the lifetime risk? We have all of these free tests for women on our website because this is our mission.
Well, we have a lot of doctors on this show in different fields. And, a lot of them are now saying, especially ones that are now out talking and screaming from the rooftops and whatever their respective fields are, that a lot of the medical system was designed for emergencies or tragedies or after something happens.
Right. Not preventative.
And it's not preventative. And so now a lot of them are leaving and going, and doing things with content or private practices or things that are kind of outside of the traditional medical field to go and get this information to people. And we had a doctor on here. He started a very prominent company in LA, and he was saying that him as a doctor, he was so traumatized after all these surgeries and doing all this work, and he was so out of shape and so sick himself. And he realized, like, after all the schooling, he actually didn't even know how to get healthy, and he had to leave and go figure that out. And I think as people that are outside of the medical field, we just assume every doctor knows all this stuff and is going to tell us this stuff. And until you start having these conversations, you don't realize you really have to be your own advocate.
But women's health is a different monster. For the number of times, one of the moms told me one day, she's like, as a woman, when you go to the doctor and you complain about anything, the diagnosis is always between your ears, which means it doesn't matter what you complain about. They call you anxious. They tell you you're PMSing. They say it's in your head. They tell you you're weak. And that needs to end because it's so far from the truth. And that's why women show up so late with advanced stage breast cancer. I've been in my own private practice for 24 years almost. And I've never lost a patient under my care to cancer.
Wow.
You can't tell me that's luck. It's not luck. I'm so vigilant with my patients. I take every symptom they tell me seriously. I have a story just to bring that home for you. One of our patients who's coming on our podcast, one day, young, beautiful influencer. She's living her best life, beautiful daughters at home, loves her husband. She had 6 months to a year of bloating. And I had delivered her babies. One day she came to me and she's like, I'm bloated. I've done everything. I've SIBO testing, supplement. I've changed my diet, the list on and on. I've seen so many GI doctors. And then you know what she did? She stood up in front of me in the room. She looked at me in the eyes and said, something's wrong with me. Something's wrong. And I'm like, I believe you. Let me put a camera and look inside. That's it. Do you know how many patients I see for bloating? But this woman looked me into my eyes and said, something's wrong with me. I took her, I did laparoscopy. She had little lesions everywhere. They were atypical for endometriosis, but I'm like, maybe it's endo. Regardless, I resected all of it laparoscopically, send it to pathology. The pathologist called me after a few days. She's like, why did you take this patient to the operating room? I'm like, why? She's like, this is one step before peritoneal carcinomatosis.
Huh.
It's a cancer of the peritoneum, which can kill you like a blink of an eye. And this woman had gone to so many doctors. So that procedure was life-changing for her. And that's why I say, women, if you're listening to this, if you feel like something's wrong, almost always something is wrong. And don't just, if someone's dismissing you, go ask for a second, third, fourth, fifth opinion. Right now, thanks to ChatGPT, you can just punch in your symptoms and 9 out of 10, you're going to get the right diagnosis.
What was Olivia Mum's story? I know she's come out and talked about you multiple times. I've seen her on her Instagram.
So Olivia, young, super healthy. I had just delivered her baby, and she came to me during her pregnancy. If you're my patient, you know that it doesn't matter where you come from. after, by 30, I have your lifetime risk of breast cancer calculated. Why is that so important? Just like your name, your last name, your date of birth, and social security number, as women, you need to know what your lifetime risk of breast cancer is. There's nothing negotiable about that. Why is it so important? If your lifetime risk is 20% or more, you fall into the high risk category. An average American has a 12.5% chance of getting breast cancer. 1 out of 8 women will get breast cancer, right? 85% of these women don't have family history. So don't tell me I don't want to do imaging because I don't have it in my family. Majority of women with breast cancer don't have a family history. As an American woman, you have a 12.5% chance of having breast cancer. Now, if you have dense breasts, if you're tall, if you have family history, if you have dense breasts, if you have extremely dense breasts, these things keep adding up. If you're overweight, they start adding up and your lifetime risk can go up. So you can't assume what that number is. You have to calculate it. If that lifetime risk is 20% or more, you do not wait until 40 to start breast imaging, which is the message every single woman is getting in this country when they go to their gynecologist. Wait till 40 to start a mammogram. How many times have you heard that?
That's what all I've heard. Smart Mouth. This is going to give you 24-hour fresh breath. But here is the deal with Smart Mouth. It's the only mouthwash scientifically proven to eliminate and prevent bad breath. And like I said, it's for 24 hours and it's just 2 rinses. So here's what it does. It has this unique dual chamber. It's a bottle and it keeps their 2 powerful solutions separate until you're ready to rinse. So you pour the 2 solution into the cup and then you're activating their smart zinc technology. So it's a zinc ion activation, and that's the key to eliminating and preventing sulfur gas, which is bad breath. And it's the secret to all day fresh breath. What I like about this brand is it was developed by a dentist, Dr. Cohen. He spent years researching the cause of bad breath. So he didn't just look to prevent bad breath, he looked what the cause is. And that's how he developed Smart Mouth's patented zinc ion technology. He literally wrote a book on bad breath. I feel like he needs to come on the podcast. He's an author about halitosis. So he knows what he's talking about, okay? Never have bad breath again. Find Smart Mouth at Walgreens, Walmart, and Amazon, or visit smartmouth.com/skinny to snag a special discount on your next Smart Mouth purchase. That's www.smartmouth.com/skinny. Don't miss out on 24-hour fresh breath. Your mouth will thank you. I am such a die-hard fan for this brand that I became an advisor for them. Like, I am so into it, and that is Symbiotica. I take their products every single day. Not only do I take their products, my friends take their products, my family takes their products, my husband takes them, even my kids. So what I'll do with my kids, this is my thing right now, is I will give them strawberries and I'll also give them blueberries, like a bowl of it. And then next to it, I'll put Symbiotica's longevity chocolate mushrooms in a little bowl and they'll dip their fruit into the chocolate. It's genius. This chocolate can go on ice cream, waffles, pancakes, fruit, anything. It's a really good one. I also love it. It's amazing. It's really good for immunity. I also would grab their liposomal glutathione. It kind of tastes like citrus berry and it's an amazing antioxidant. It also boosts your metabolism. And then I'm a huge fan of their vitamin C. And the benefits of this are glowing skin, it promotes collagen and strengthens immunity. I really like this brand because there's a lot of integrity behind it. It's clean, it's trustworthy, it's effective. It also tastes delicious. My kids love it. There's no fillers, there's no additives, there's no fake natural flavors. Go to symbiotica.com/TSC to get 20% off plus free shipping. That's symbiotika.com/TSC. You get 20% off plus free shipping. symbiotica.com/TSC.
This episode is brought to you by Squarespace. Squarespace is the all-in-one website platform for entrepreneurs to stand out and succeed online. Whether you're just starting out or managing a growing brand, Squarespace makes it easy to create a beautiful website, engage with your audience, and sell anything from products to content to time, all in one place, all on your own terms. If you're an entrepreneur, an aspiring content creator, or anyone that is looking to just create a side hustle to either generate a little bit more buzz around you personally or to generate some extra income, Squarespace has you covered. Lauren and I have been hugely outspoken for years about owning your own platform online. So many of us fall into the trap of only creating content on these third-party platforms that we really have no control over. They can ban a profile, they can decide to switch directions and not allow certain kinds of content. You never know, you're always at the mercy of these third parties. This is why it's so important to own your own website, your own e-com channel, your own newsletter, your own RSS feed, you name it, own your own profile online, and Squarespace can help you do it. Whether you're looking for intelligent design, they can help you build and stand up a beautiful website. Whether you're looking to create payments for that side hustle or that maybe farmer's market shop, they can do that as well. Or if you're looking to build a full out brand, Squarespace can help you do that as well. They can also help you sell content, whether you're looking to build a course or a subscription business. Squarespace can do it all. And of course, they have SEO tools to help you continue to get discovered. So if you've been thinking about creating that brand, that side hustle, that side project, anything online, make sure you think about having Squarespace help you do it. Of course, we have an incredible offer for our listeners and viewers. Go to squarespace.com for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, squarespace.com/skinny to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Again, that's squarespace.com/skinny.
If your lifetime risk is high, you can start imaging as early as 30. And that imaging is not just mammogram and ultrasound. You have to add MRI to it. If you have family history of any cancer, in addition to that, you also have to take a genetic test. In my office, I do the MyRisk genetic test. I don't know if you've heard of Myriad. They check for 48 cancer-causing genes. They calculate your thyrocusic risk, your thyrocusic risk of breast cancer, which is the formula I'm telling you. It's available to everyone. We have it for free at SheMD. You just punch in your information and it tells you your lifetime risk. But what Myriad does is that in addition to those two information, they look in your DNA for tiny little markers. These are markers that individually don't have power, but some women walk around with tons of these markers in their DNA. So their thyrocusic risk score based on just history alone, height, weight, and family history, could be, let's say, 18%. But when you look for these tiny little markers, not the 48 cancer-causing genes, these are little tiny markers, that number, that 18% could shoot up to 38%. That's why it's so important if you have family history to add the genetic test in addition to thyrocusic. Now, this Olivia's story, she had family history. Her mammogram and ultrasound were completely negative because she was at the time, I think, 41. She had just delivered, ordered breast imaging, and it was normal. And one day when she came back, and I had done the MyRisk genetic test on her, and when her results came back, I told her, that she needed an MRI. At first, most women don't know why they would need an MRI. I mean, it's not, most doctors don't order it unless you have family history. So because of her lifetime risk, I had her lifetime risk at the time was 37%. So I called her. I said, you need to do an MRI. I think she was a little apprehensive because her friends told her, why is your doctor so paranoid? You don't really need it. And for my patients or people who know me, I don't negotiate. If you're my patient, I don't negotiate because I'm responsible for keeping you healthy. So she went and did her MRI, and they found 2 lesions on her right and 1 on her left. All 3, she had a very aggressive form of breast cancer, but we caught it so early. And she did a double mastectomy, obviously, because it was bilateral and it was super aggressive. And she had a tiny little baby at home. She came to my office. She's like, what would you do? I'm like, well, I did a double mastectomy for myself. So, that's what I would recommend. And she's so lovely. I don't know if you know her. She's the sweetest, most amazing human on this planet. And it took her a minute to heal because the trauma of being diagnosed at such a young age with an aggressive breast cancer is really hard. But it took her, I think, maybe a year. And in March or April of last year, I used to tell her in the office, I'm like, I made a documentary because my journey was crazier than her journey, my breast cancer journey, and how I had to advocate for myself. And I told her, I'm like, I don't have a voice, but someone like you can save millions of women. If you just talk about the thyrocusic risk calculator. And she did it. And on the day she released her post and talked about this risk assessment tool, I think that one of the government's cancer sites crashed, completely crashed, because people, I mean, even today in an audience of, I don't know, 200 people, I said, raise your hand if you know your lifetime risk of breast cancer. 5 people raised their hands. People haven't heard of it. Do you know your lifetime risk of breast cancer? Do you know what I'm saying? That's what's so devastating for me. Every time I hear of a celebrity or a patient dying at a young age, stage 4 breast cancer, I'm like, right? We were talking, there's no preventative care.
Do you have to do all 4 things that you said to get your lifetime risk?
No, so Tyrer-Cuzick, we have it on SheMD. They can go on SheMD, and it's a formula. You punch in, you answer a bunch of questions. They're very basic. In America, you have to put the BI-RADS scoring because that's how we score mammograms. And if you want to know whether or not you have the density, your breasts
Explain what the BI-RADS score is.
So it's the way we score your mammogram findings.
So you have to get a mammogram to then put it into your calculator.
Usually, so not necessarily. So one of the questions so the questions are height, weight, age, family history, whether or not you're Ashkenazi, age at first period, age at menopause, whether or not you've done hormone replacement therapy. So they're very basic questions. One question is density of the breast. If you don't know your density of the breast, don't mark it. It's a density of the breast is a finding on imaging. So you can't touch your breast.
Like I go like this. I'm like, oh, they're big. Like that is not a dense breast. That you can only find it in a mammogram.
So mammogram or MRI, the radiologist usually makes a note. And for women with extremely dense breast, these women are at a higher risk of breast cancer. And the problem with extremely dense breast, which was my case, is the mammogram might not be as accurate. And 2D mammograms, the 2-dimensional, is just an x-ray of your breast. People with dense breast on a 2D mammogram, their breast the area looks white. So the radiologists can't really comment. So they say based on what we see, there are no lesions, but they can't really evaluate the breast. That's why having a 3D mammogram and adding an ultrasound is crucial for women with dense breast. And 50% of women have dense breast tissue. And the younger you are, the denser your breast, the older you get, the less dense. But these are basics. I mean, we cover all of this in SheMD. But if it was a world, I always say I would love for women on this planet Earth to give me 1 hour. If we would pause the world for a second and let me talk to these women for 1 hour, I would arm them with everything, at least the most important things for them to know, from endometriosis to PCOS to breast cancer and how to be their own health advocate, to STDs, to all of it. These are very simple topics. This is not rocket science.
What was your journey with breast cancer? That's so crazy that you work in this field and this happened to you. I can't even believe it.
You know what? It changed my perspective because I had never been sick prior to that. And once I became a patient in this broken healthcare system, I realized that if a woman in my position had to fight so hard to save her own life, other women have no chance. Well,
how did you even discover
So
you
I
had
was
it?
48. I went for my mammogram and they found something in my left breast. At the time I was 48, I was a vegetarian for 7 years. I had no family history of any cancer, let alone breast cancer. I never smoked. I never did drugs. I rarely drink alcohol. I had never been overweight. I was not on hormones. So I was like the perfect woman who would never get quote unquote breast cancer. So they did a biopsy. They found some atypical lobular cells and they told me there's some atypical cells. Let's remove it. Great. I went, they removed it. I went back to my post-op check and my doctor was a breast cancer specialist, said, okay, go and come back in 6 months. I said, okay. She's like, we're going to repeat your imaging. Okay. I went to my office and I was sitting in my office having lunch with the Myriad drug rep. And I had always calculated my patient's lifetime risk of breast cancer. And he looked at me, he's like, I was telling him about my breast biopsy. And he said, did you ever calculate your lifetime risk? I'm like, no, that's a good idea. Let me do it. So I started punching my information in. And one of the questions says, have you been diagnosed with atypical hyperplasia? I put a check in front of it. As soon as I put a check in front of it and I hit calculate, this number popped on the screen, 37.5%. I almost fell off my chair, because I'd done it for my patients for years, but it never even crossed my mind that I would be one of them. And I was like, this can't be right. I logged out, logged in again, 37.5%. I called my doctor. I'm like, wait a minute. You told me to go and come back in 6 months. I have a 37% chance of getting breast cancer. I have 3 little kids at home. I love my husband. I love my job. I don't want to get breast cancer. She's like, come see me. I went to see her. She's like, listen, you're too young. What do you want to do? I'm like, remove my breast. She's like, you're crazy. You're so young. I'm like, no. I had implants at the time. I'm like, I don't care. Just remove my implant, remove my breast tissue, and put a new implant. She's like, no, it's disfiguring. It's such a traumatic surgery. You don't want to do it. Trust me, you're okay. You're going to be fine. You're so healthy. Look at you. Why are you so paranoid? Go do it when you're 50. You go home. I always say this, if I had told you have you're boarding a plane that has a 37.5% chance of crashing, would you board that plane?
No.
With your children?
No.
So why is it that people called me crazy? I asked so many doctors. They all called me paranoid, crazy, until one doctor told me, you know what, you should do this. And I pretty much convinced her to do this for me. And she sent me for an MRI, and I went to my hospital to do the MRI. And on the day of my MRI, the day before my double mastectomy, the radiologist was like, why are you here? I'm like, oh, I'm having a double mastectomy tomorrow, so they wanted an MRI. She's like, you're having a double mastectomy with a negative mammogram ultrasound and your MRI was benign? I'm like, yeah, because my lifetime risk is high. I never forget that moment. I was sitting, they were starting an IV because you need a contrast with MRI. As she was walking away from me, she turned around. She's like, you're crazy. And, well, I had my double mastectomy. Apparently I bled a lot. It was a complicated, because my surgeon at the time who was willing to do this, I think had done 4 mastectomies because no one else wanted to do my mastectomy pretty much. And it took 10 hours. I got 2 units of blood transfusion, but so many people had called me crazy that I hired a videographer to videotape my journey. And I don't remember this, but I saw it on video. As soon as they wheeled me out of the operating room, the first thing I said to my husband, I started having tears come down from my eyes, and I said, go tell our daughters, mommy will never come home telling them that she has, I would never come home telling them I have breast cancer. And I was so happy. And even though I was sick and I was getting blood transfusion, I could fly. I was so proud of myself. I felt like this giant weight was off my shoulder and I could go live my life. A week later, I get a call from my reconstructive surgeon who called me and said, Thaïs, I need to talk to you. And he told me that on my path report, not in the left breast where they were digging for years, on my right breast at 6 o'clock, I had invasive breast cancer. So it was stage 1 invasive breast cancer.
So did you feel an intuition that you had that, or did you just think you were going to get it? Like what? It must have been more than just
I'm
30.
a very logical person. 37.5% boarding that plane was a huge risk for me. And I didn't want to board that plane. And my surgeon, the day before my surgery, said, I told her, why do you guys argue so much? I'm a mother of 3 little children. Why is it so hard for people to do my double mastectomy? This is me. I understand. I take the risk. It's okay for you to do this. Why is it an uphill battle? You know what she told me? She said, because we have really good chemo for breast cancer.
Oh!
And this is one of the top OBGYNs in the world, and she's having to fight for herself in that way. That's the point of it all. That's the reason we started GMD.
So what do most people do? They would just give up? They would just be told
they
no?
They would
and
not give up. They would come back in 6 months. And with my cancer, the type of cancer that I had, chemo doesn't really work in advanced stages. That's why people die. Do you understand? That's why women die of breast cancer. I'm not saying we can prevent all of it, but we can catch these high-risk women
early.
And I'm not saying go remove your breast. That's not my message. But you need to know that if you're 20% or more, you need to start imaging as early as 30. If you have family history, you need genetic testing. If you're high risk, in addition to mammogram and ultrasound, you need an MRI. If your lifetime risk is north of 30%, besides doing imaging every 6 months, you have two options. One, you can take a medication like tamoxifen that will block 50% of cancers from coming. So it can reduce your risk of breast cancer within 10 years by 50%. So it can drop you from 40% to 20%, from 30% to 15%, which is significant. You have to take it one a day for 5 years.
Are there side effects?
There are side effects. It can give you hot flashes, vaginal dryness, brain fog. But you know what? For someone who lost their mom at age 14, 25% might be a high number, right? It's all relative. And if your risk is high, then as a woman, you should have the option of doing a double mastectomy, which is what I did. So when you deal with cancer and you know what the outcome could have been had I not done it, I never get sad about the breast cancer. I only get sad when I think of what could have happened to me and my children had I not advocated for myself.
And you have had a front row seat to seeing what breast cancer does to people's lives. So I'm sure you were even more.
Who wants chemo? How can you look a mother in the eyes and say we have good chemo for breast cancer? That's how women get treated in this healthcare system. But it doesn't even, but you know, breast cancer is, again, one slice of that well-woman exam, knowing your lifetime risk, doing the genetic test. Then you get to all these other things. So that's why, honestly, we started GMD. And I always say, if you told me you can go back 5 years and not have breast cancer and live that life, or which was an amazing life, by the way, I was still advocating for women. But my advocacy and my passion for helping women around the world who I've never met, I've never seen, or have never talked to before is beyond anything I could have imagined. It's my mission in life, and I will help change women's health. I can't do it by myself, but together we can, you know, we can do this.
I think you talked about something. You talked about shame with women, and we talked about shame. We talk about this a lot, is that our mothers had so much shame in menopause and they weren't allowed to get hormones. They suffered in silence. Our generation, we're talking more about menopause, a little bit about PCOS, a little bit about endometriosis and breast cancer. But there is, Olivia and I talk about this a lot, where she said the only time she cried, she never cried, not one moment, because her mission was to save her own life. Like, she knew from Dr. A what to do. But the first time she looked in the mirror after having, you know, the reconstructive surgery, she cried. And because she said they were misshapen. And then, you know, to see her now and to have her in the Skims campaign, and she showed the scar of her mastectomy, and she came on the podcast and she talked about it. So, I mean, obviously Dr. A saved her life, but the shame seems to be going away. Women aren't ashamed anymore. We're saying, hey, this is me, and, you know, I have a mastectomy. Or with PCOS, I can't lose weight. I have acne. I have facial hair. They're ashamed to talk about it. Women that have endometriosis and can't have sex because it's so painful, they're ashamed of that. Women in menopause are ashamed to say, like, I'm not fertile anymore. I feel like I'm thrown away at this age. And that's what all of us are doing. That's what you're doing by talking about this on your podcast. If we can take the shame away and make women empowered by, again, the knowledge, they can do anything. You know, they can save their own life. So I think, like, getting rid of that shame that you were asking about earlier and saying, I think is important.
I think it starts at home, of just making it not a topic that's shameful. Every woman has a vagina. Like, it's not like,
we say vagina.
Vagina.
And my boys, I love this man sitting here asking these questions. I have all boys, and when they were little, we named it the right thing, and they need to know about menopause and PCOS and endometriosis, because they'll have a wife or a mother or a sister who's going to be going through breast cancer, 1 in 8. So they need to be armed. You know, Dr. A always says, I like men to come one time to a woman's well visit so that they can sort of look what they're going through. When a woman is going through perimenopause and menopause, all these things are happening to her. My husband sat me down, and thank God I have this podcast, and he literally said to me, I think you have dementia. I think that there's something wrong with you. I'm like, listen to the menopause, episode. I have brain fog, and hormones are going to help, and my brain's going to come back. But right now, you can have a conversation that's super important. I'm not going to remember it next.
This is
in
what
an
he
hour.
says when I'm pregnant. He goes, "What's wrong with you?" I'm like,
"What's wrong with me?"
He says, "What's wrong with me?" I'm like, he's like, "You
Poor
seem
guy.
a little forgetful." I'm like, because the baby's taking all my fucking vitamins.
I'm taking all your brain.
I did see literally you like it wasn't a bad crash, where you crashed the whole
I crashed
side
the
of
car.
the car.
Get over it.
And I
I'm
said, "Did you
pregnant."
do this?" And she got mad at me for asking if she did it. I'm like, she goes, "I don't know if that was me." I'm like, "You're the only
I
person
forgot.
that could be."
But you lose your brain
She's
in
allowed.
pregnancy. It's the same thing in menopause. Pregnant, same thing. And when I was pregnant, I was like, I can't find my keys.
No, it's
I can't remember
honestly
what
crazy.
I said.
It's like you have had today. You woke up. You're like, I had to wake up at 4:45 with the dog. I'm like, try being
That
pregnant,
is early.
bitch.
That is early.
Exactly.
I have independently things my own ailments, but I realize I can't talk about them when she's pregnant.
I have a question. This is an ignorant question. I'm not making a statement, so everyone can calm down. I'm just wondering, is there a correlation between all of the hormones from IVF and cancer? Because you see it go up.
To answer your questions, the one thing I worry about with my patients are these patients who've done 8, 9, 10, 12 cycles of IVF. For those patients, they might have a slightly higher chance of ovarian cancer. And when they're menopausal, and definition of menopause is no period for 12 months, and the average age of menopause being 51 and a half, when they're completely menopausal, I might offer prophylactic surgery to remove their ovaries, especially if they have family history of it or obviously any genetic mutations. But other than that, most patients don't have as many. Like my patients worry about 2 cycles of egg freezing. Absolutely not. They're very, very safe. If you have to freeze eggs, you have to do it. If you have to freeze embryos,
So it's
you have
not
to
the
do it.
freezing, but what about the part where you?
But they only get a couple of weeks of it. So it's not.
So the freezing is not a big deal, but I'm talking about, and maybe I'm saying this wrong, the part where they like put the egg in you with all the shots.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
I think there's a lot of
those are
misinformation
very,
about that.
very, very safe.
What about, you mentioned this earlier quickly, what about hormone replacement therapy and the correlation to cancer? Because that, men and women, do you worry about that at all?
I love this question.
So I would say hormone replacement is crucial for most women going through menopause. We have more data. She mentioned that the Women's Health Initiative, there were a lot of flaws with that study. When I started practicing medicine, we would give hormones to every single woman. Now, that was an extreme. If you were 85 years old and you walked to an office, they would start you on hormone replacement. But now we have so much more information. Then the WHI study came out and boom, everyone stopped hormones. And I think the women in that generation really, really suffered. And for women who've gone through menopause, from hot flashes to night sweats to brain fog, lack of sleep, hair loss, skin thinning, vaginal dryness, painful sex, weight gain, joint pain. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. It's one of the most horrific times for women, and hormone replacement really, really eases that transition, especially when prescribed the first 10 years of menopause.
Let's talk about Just Thrive, one of our favorite probiotic companies out there. We have been taking Just Thrive products for years now. Remember when you were a kid with an iron stomach? Nothing could hurt you, nothing could harm you. Pizza, ice cream, peanut butter and jelly, nothing fazed you. But these days, if you're like most people, you feel like your stomach's a bear trap. One wrong bite and you're done. You're finished. Here's the thing. Years ago, our ancestors ate lots of bitter plants daily that made our digestion work. But our modern diet has completely eliminated these essential compounds. You've heard us talk about Just Thrive probiotics for years now, but now we're also loving one of their newest products that we just talked about with the founders, their digestive bitters. Like I said, we chatted with the team back in November all about this incredible product. Make sure to check out that episode. If you just search Just Thrive, Skinny Confidential, you'll see it. And these tasteless capsules contain 12 bitter herbs clinically proven to wake up your digestive system. Some of those results are like no more bloat, burps, belly aches after meals, just comfortable digestion like when you were younger. We also talked about how Just Thrive digestive bitters even support natural GLP-1 production, helping control cravings and keeping you satisfied for longer. So give your gut the care it deserves. Try Just Thrive probiotics and digestive bitters today, risk-free, and save 20% off with code TSC at justthrivehealth.com. See the difference for yourself or get a full product refund, no questions asked. That's justthrivehealth.com, code TSC, because your health is your greatest asset. There is a direct correlation over the last 10 years of doing this show with our health drastically improving. And that is because we get to meet so many incredible people in the field of health that are making groundbreaking discoveries that are changing people's overall health and helping people live healthier, happier, better lives. This is why I'm so excited to share with you guys a scientific breakthrough to support our long-term health and wellness, which is called C15. C15 is the first essential fatty acid to be discovered in 90 years. And get this, studies have confirmed that it's 3 times better, broader, and safer than omega-3. When we first heard about this, we had to have the founder, Dr. Stephanie Van Watson, on this show. She's the one who discovered C15 as the first essential fatty acid to be found in over 90 years while working with U.S. Navy dolphins. This is a crazy story. We did 2 episodes on it. You should check them out. Just search Dr. Stephanie Van Watson, TSC, and you will find it. But long story short, she discovered this C15, and it's pretty simple. Essential nutrients keep our cells healthy, which keeps us healthy. If you want to get sciencey about it, studies show that C15 works by strengthening our cells, improving our mitochondrial function, and protecting us against damaging free radicals. It ends up many of us are deficient in C15, which results in weaker cells that make less energy and quit working earlier than they should. All of that makes us age faster, sleep poorly, feel sluggish. If this sounds familiar, it's likely because you're deficient in C15. Fatty 15 is on a mission to replenish your C15 levels and restore your long-term health. You can get an additional 15% off their 90-day subscription starter kit by going to fatty15.com/skinny and using code SKINNY at checkout.
Do you know what I want after I deliver this baby? A freezing cold spritz. Spritz Society. I like this brand so much, I actually did a collab with them. We did Spritz Society times the Skinny Confidential. My obvious favorite flavor is that flavor. It's the pink lemonade. And it's officially available nationwide. So you can get it in 40 states at Target. You can get it at H-E-B, GoPuff. You can get it at Jewel Osco. You can also get it online at spritzsociety.com. It comes in a cute pink can. And you should know that this award-winning canned cocktail brand was founded by my girlies, Claudia and Jackie from The Toast. You guys know it. It is a part of the Dear Media Network. Spritz Society has won USA's Today Best Canned Cocktail 3 years in a row. You gotta try, though, the pink lemonade. So how I do it is I crack open a can and I put it over ice in a wine glass. Sometimes I add a sprig of basil. There is no fake stuff in it. It's real white wine, a real cane sugar, and 6 ingredients or less. They also have a peach, but I just prefer that pink lemonade. I'm telling you, strawberry, rose, and lemon. It tastes like a bold strawberry lemonade. It's not too sweet. Head to spritzsociety.com to find a store near you. And don't forget to follow @Spritz on Instagram. They're always dropping exciting new flavors and throwing fun events. Spritz Society. Summer starts here. I know someone that was on hormone replacement that's close to us that they found something in her breasts. Like, it was not cancerous, but they found something and they told her to get off hormones because it could grow. We got to send her to you.
So, I mean, obviously I can't have a comment because I haven't seen the PATH report. But let's say if you have someone with a lifetime risk of 48% for breast cancer, I would say, you know what, I'll be uneasy. Not only she shouldn't be on hormones, she should be on something that would block the estrogen and lower that risk. So those patients can do a double mastectomy and then get hormone replacement. If someone has breast cancer or their biopsy is cancer, sometimes friends don't share all the details, right? If she had an early stage 1 breast cancer that was removed, she won't be a candidate for hormone replacement if her cancer was estrogen receptor positive or progesterone receptor positive. So, but generally speaking, hormone replacement is extremely safe, and it is a game changer for women.
I think so for men too. Like people ask me on the show, they're like, "Oh, are you on hormone replacement?" I said, "It's not. I'm not right now, but it's a matter not, but when." Like I think at certain points, it's dangerous for your hormone levels, especially
to plummet.
Yeah.
You both have spoken about Ozempic. What is your feelings on that?
So.
That's why we met. No, I'm not going to talk about it. I just think it's the most important. I mean, we're learning so much research about how geoprotective it is and how heart protective it is. So
Is that because it solves insulin resistance?
Not really. So
okay.
Let's talk about this. So actually,
I'm just wondering. I'm trying to keep up.
no. It
Dr.
helps. It
Bostic
helps.
is
It
on the
helps.
case.
It
Yeah.
helps. It helps. It helps
Yep.
insulin resistance for sure.
But by the way, this is such a good question. This is what I do in the podcast. I ask the questions because I'm not a doctor.
Yeah.
So I'm
Oh no,
you.
I have no shame around it because I know
me
like,
either. I'm like, what does that mean? What do
I
you
can
think?
say, listen, I was never put to school in this. I'm just, this is my schooling.
So in 2014, these medications were introduced to the market. And in 2014, I started using these medications for my PCOS patients. In 2014, I had patients who would lose 60, 70, 80 pounds. Back then, I was using Trulicity, a different name.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, I went to using Victoza, from Victoza to Saxenda, from Saxenda to Wegovy to Saxenda, I think to Ozempic to Wegovy, and then to Mounjaro and Zepbound. So the medications have gotten better and better over the years with better weight loss profile and less symptoms. Because these medications have been a game changer for my patients for almost 11 years now, I actually get upset when people have negative comments about these meds because for women who suffer from obesity, from insulin resistance, they're overweight, these medications have been life-changing for them. And it's easy for a thin woman to sit and judge them. And these are women who are always told, well, eat less, exercise more, you're probably eating unhealthy, which is not true. It's not true for these women. And it's so unfair to them. And for the first time in the history of the world, for the past 11 years, we've had a medication to treat these patients. And it's been an absolute game changer. I tell you, when it exploded in this country, I was probably one of the handful of people in this country who had so much experience with these meds because I was putting everyone on it because of PCOS. And in all these years, I've never seen a bad, side effect. I've seen side effects,
Sure.
but nothing dangerous from it. The most common side effects being nausea, heartburn, constipation, fatigue. But if you tell these patients, but you know what it is? When you have someone who's 280 pounds, she's already tired. She can't exercise. Her self-esteem is probably affected. She's not feeling well. And as you drop their weight, they get motivated to get up. They get motivated to exercise because for the first time in their life, they're actually seeing results.
This is what our friend was telling us the other day when we were out. She's like, I was 260 pounds. She's like, I was starving myself, trying everything. I couldn't do it. She's like, I got on Ozempic.
She got her confidence back.
She got her confidence
with her
back. She's
husband
working
again.
out every day. She's
I think
sex
like
with her
what
husband.
we talk about I definitely agree with you. I think it could be a tremendous tool, especially for people that are struggling with that kind of weight loss journey. I think where sometimes like there's nuance to it is you'll have somebody who's really not struggling, but they want to trim off like 15, 20 pounds and they're not working with a medical consultant or not looking at any of their, they're just kind of doing it and they don't really know how to manage, how to use it. I think that's where people can get in trouble. But again, if someone's obese and struggling, I think the benefits far outweigh not using the tool.
I also use it, sometimes in my perimenopausal or menopausal women. It's very hard. As we get older, we become more insulin resistant, especially with history of, let's say you have PCOS and you're going through menopause. It's really difficult to lose even 10 pounds. Mm-hmm. So sometimes I use it. Let's say I have a 54-year-old who cannot lose that 20 pounds with diet and exercise.
Yeah.
So, but I agree with you. It needs to be under the supervision of a physician.
The way I think about it is that, like, you'll see a lot of young 20-year-old men start getting on hormone replacement therapy because they want to get strong in the gym.
Right.
And they're not consulting with medical professionals. And then what they don't realize, their fertility plummets. And they're, they have all these things because they're like, oh, I can use this tool. I look at all of those tools in the same light. It's like, you got to work with someone who knows their shit.
And I think it's influencer medicine that's really dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another reason that we started the podcast, which is you need medically backed, science backed, you need to know the newest research. You need to be aware. And sometimes, and listen, I have tons of friends that are amazing influencers, but when they start talking medicine, it makes me a little scared. And I think that you really have to go to medical school, or, we should be getting our medical advice from people that went to medical school.
Right.
And I think that what the influencers can do in such a beautiful way is share their own journeys and have other people with their own journeys. And that's what we do in the podcast too, when we have all these amazing women.
And then bring the experts on.
Right. So they're sharing their story. SZA was our first episode, and she shared her PCOS and her endometriosis, but nobody should be taking medical advice from SZA. So you have to be talking to the expert that helped her get to where she was. Kim Kardashian came on. She was talking about psoriasis. We had Dr. Wallace, who was the #1 autoimmune expert. He explained medically what happened to her, how he treated her. She was so open with her journey with it. And that really helps people that are, again, the shame. She was saying, I, at the Met Gala, had to, I had psoriasis all over my face. She explained her shame in that moment. And you think Kim Kardashian, who's so beautiful and kind of the epitome of beauty for a lot of people, her talking about that is really important, but it was also really important to have Dr. Wallace talking about the medicine and the science behind it.
I think we're in an interesting time right now, especially in the medical field, because to your point earlier, some medical professionals, if they call you crazy or they don't take your symptoms seriously, it's like, well, you maybe don't want to listen to them. But then others like yourself who are really advocating and getting the word out there, I think people, are really just trying to figure out who to listen to and who to trust, because it'd be it's a tragedy when you go to someone and they either deny you care or tell you that you're crazy when you actually have something. But again, like sometimes that happens because these people are like, oh, that my doctor said that, so it must be true. We talk about, there's so much nuance in this space. But again, I think it comes down to being your own advocate.
Even as a physician, I got a call a couple of weeks ago, and a physician called me and said, there's this doctor in Santa Monica who thinks maybe you're not diagnosing endometriosis, like I'm over exaggerating. And thank God, because I take a video every time I go in the pelvis. I take a full video. I zoom on the lesions of endometriosis. I have biopsy, path report.
It's like James Cameron in the Titanic.
She is James Cameron.
She's in there, man.
She's in that vagina, videoing it. It's amazing.
It's not vagina. It's in the abdomen.
See, that's why I play a doctor on TV instead of really being.
But in reality, is even when you want to help women, there are other people who want to take you down. So it's a difficult world for women.
Like, just so you know, this episode will go out, and I imagine 95% of people will be very happy and excited.
But there will be TikTok clips in this one.
we are no strangers to having people like yourself on and getting flack for even having the conversation.
I don't care anymore. Yeah. Let's ask the burning question. If the guy gets his balls clipped,
I love this question.
Does prostate cancer go up?
I really don't want to. I don't want to get clipped.
I think you need to ask your urologist that question.
Okay.
But as a gynecologist, I will tell you that for up to 2 months after a vasectomy, you can still ejaculate sperm. And there are couples who get
I might want a little more than 2 months.
No, but once you do
I've had a lot of sperm. This has been a lot of sperm for me. I am spermed out.
I'm trying to avoid the clipping in general. It scares the hell out of me.
Well, let me just tell you the opposite story of this. And I told my boys this story who are leading into the age of being sexually active. I said, listen, when I got married with my second husband, he said, we have 5 children together. I don't want any more kids. And I was dying. I'm missing a baby. And I was like, okay, totally. I said, I'm on birth control. And he
don't tell me you were lying.
Totally lying.
I would lie.
Totally lie.
I get that. If I wanted another kid and he didn't, I would lie.
I mean, I don't have as many kids as she wants. So that's.
I'm not being honest. I would lie.
Women, don't listen to them and don't lie to your husband.
I want to tell you as a man. So finally,
you scoop it up there.
Yeah.
Put your legs up.
I have patients who come to my office. They're like, "Can I borrow a syringe?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "What for?"
I didn't.
You know what they do?
I get a turkey baster.
They go to the condom and they pull the sperm out and they inject themselves.
But I didn't do that. But my husband had to get a vasectomy finally because I had a baby and a miscarriage. And he goes, you're not on the pill. It's still tricking me if we're married. And so and up until the point he had the miscarriage, and 2 weeks after, he's had more sex than he ever had in his life. I was trying. I was like, give me that.
Well, it scares me. So I don't know.
I'm in charge of that, bitch.
I heard it's more painful than people say.
So
He
you
didn't say it
don't
was
know,
painful.
we don't know if prostate cancer goes up.
You
from
know
the
what? I
clipping.
don't want to comment on that because
Okay.
I
Not
don't
your
treat
field.
men.
I just
Okay.
thought I'd ask.
She said not to get one. So
Thank God I don't treat prostate.
she said.
Go
She
ask
said.
your own
So you're
doctor.
saying don't get one. It's
She
okay.
doesn't want to see
We don't have to get one.
I don't think that's what she said.
Go back to women.
Where can everyone find you both? Pimp yourselves out. Your Instagram. How do they take the quiz? Where do they find the podcast that is with Dear Media, which is so exciting? Tell us.
The podcast is called SheMD. It's on YouTube. It's everywhere you listen to your podcast. On SheMD, we have the exact genetic test she uses, the lifetime risk. We have a link to OV.com. OV is launched 3 months ago. It's OVII.com. You can go on it and take the exact questions for free that she gives every single patient that comes into her office. You can also get the supplement. The point of it is, which will treat a lot of those symptoms. Our social media handle is SheMD Podcast, at SheMD Podcast, at Dr. Thaïs Aliabadi, Haney Official.
We'll find it and we'll put it all in the notes so everybody can find it easily.
You guys, thank you for having us. I
Thank you
think
for
this
doing this.
conversation was so and you kind of like condensed all that we do on, some of our episodes.
But if they want the detail, they got to go listen to the podcast. They can find
it's
everything.
every single episode. It's anything you could think about for women's health. We've done 53 episodes. If you want to know about menopause, if you want to know PCOS, if you want to know about endometriosis, HTDs, every single condition that a woman will have from the beginning of her journey to. And I will want to say, we talked a lot about PCOS. The Greg Renfro, one of my friends that started Beauty Counter, her daughter, the mother-daughter story, what you were kind of asking, that will break your heart but it will, for a mother struggling for a daughter, not knowing what to do, really listen to that episode.
But thank you for having us.
Yeah, this was so much fun. And thank you
guys
for
for doing
Dear
this.
Media, honestly.
Well, thank you for trusting us.
Thank you guys.